Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are here with what's for me a very exciting video. I love these type of videos, not just like making them for my own channel, but also watching them. I think these type of statistics are very fun, and I feel like it's a different way to get an insight into someone's collection. I also love doing them for me. I do kind of love posting these videos because it helps me get an insight to my own collection, and I actually been really looking forward to doing the calculations for this video. I've been looking forward to it all of end of last year because I wanted to wait to do it until the beginning of January, so I had like the fresh numbers for the beginning of the year, and I'm so excited to finally share them with you. I obviously have already done my calculations, but I'm excited to share them with you and talk you through them. I actually did it a couple of days ago and I haven't looked back at them since, so I can't remember all of them, but yeah, I'm excited to just look through them. So this video, as you can see from the title, is how many years of makeup do I own? And this is basically just a video to help kind of just get a better idea of how many years of makeup I have left in my collection. So again, I look at my inventory and see how many products I have left. And then looking at my empties from the last couple of years, I see approximately how many products I use up per year, per category. And from that, I do some sort of calculation to see how many years I have left as an average, like kind of taking into consideration the last couple of years. So obviously the more years I do this, the more years of tracked empties I have, the more accurate this video will be. But yeah, I'm really excited to share with you the numbers. So I'm going to jump into the video, but before I do so, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. Alright, so I kind of covered already how I calculate the numbers, but just to recap it again. So what I do is I actually have written down my empties for every single year since I started tracking my empties. So I went through since 2018 how many products in each category I've finished up. So for example, I have primers 2, foundations 8, and so on. So I list that for every single year. So I have every year from 2018, which is when I started started my channel basically. And I have written down every single empty that I have. Obviously this time it was easier because I already had the data from the previous years, and I only had to add the 2024 data on top of it. But yeah, I did that to kind of see how many products in each category I finished on average per year. So what I did then is I calculated the total products per category. And then since I've been tracking my empties for 7 years, I decided to divide it by 7. So that gave me an average. Just quickly, there is a couple categories where I didn't divide it by 7 because I haven't had products in those categories for 7 years. So of course, one example, for example, is setting sprays. I only actually own setting sprays 5 out of those 7 years. So I decided to split it by 5 because obviously I can't finish something if I don't have it in my collection. So some of these years are like less than that, but the average is still accurate considering when I had those products in my collection. So that's how I do my maths. And then when I have the average on how many products in each category I can finish per year, again, it is the average for the last 8 years, not just the last past year, because I feel like, you know, some years you might have loads of half-empty products and you go through more than you normally would and stuff like that. So I feel like the more years I have into the data bank, the more accurate the results will be. So that's why I do the average. And then once I have the average, I go through and I look how many products I have in that category right now. So in my inventory for 2025, and I divide it by average, and that will give me a certain amount of years to finish the remaining products. So again, that's how I do my maths. I am going to jump into the first category and start off with primers. So for primers, right now I have 7 primers in my collection. That could be full size or, you know, minis, anything like that, but I have 7 in my collection at the moment. And when I did my maths, I finished up 2.14 primers per year on average, which means that I currently have 3.27 years left of primers. So a decent amount, nothing too, you know, alarming, but definitely higher than it has been in the past. But I do know that a lot of primers that I have in my collection are mini primers. So if I look at it, I think more accurately would be less than that, but that is what the numbers say, so that's what I'm going to go with. And comparing that to last year's number, it has gone up. Last year I had 2.76 years, and I think that's part of the reason is because I finished less primers this year or in 2024 than I have in the past. And also I did get quite a few kind of primers into my collection, and that is mini primers particularly, but that is primers finished. For foundations, I'm actually looking really good at the moment because I only have 4 foundations in my collection, and looking back at my average, I finished up 3.71 foundations per year in average, which means that right now I actually only have 1.08 years of foundations left in my collection. So judging from that, I definitely need to stock up, because I only really have foundations for this year and like a little bit of the beginning of next year. And comparing that to last year, that has gone down. The last year's number was 1.57. So again, it has gone down since then. So definitely very happy with foundations, particularly. Primers again is a little bit higher, but nothing too alarming. I think anything 3 or less years is definitely okay for me. 3.27, again, a little bit higher than I would like it, but again, I think that number is more realistically lower, because again, most of my primers now is minis. So let's move on to concealers next. So from concealers, I currently have 4 in my collection, so not too high, again, doing pretty well there. And on average in the past, I have reached, well, over the last 7 years, I finished up 2.86 concealers per year, which means that I currently, according to the results, have 1.40 years left of concealers, which is again a very, very good numbers. That is actually really on par with last year, because looking at last year's number, I had 2.47 years left, which means I have gone down a year, which would, you know, give an accurate result. However, I did actually purchase a concealer, so it means that I actually used up more than my average last year. But again, that is really, really good. And 1.4 years is definitely something that I feel like is a reasonable amount. For correctors, I have 2 correctors. They're both the same. It's the Becca Under Eye corrector. I have one that I'm using and one backup. So 2 correctors in my collection, and on average I finish 0.86 correctors per year. So not quite a full one, but that's how many I finish. And looking at that, I would have 2.33 years left. But the Becca Under Eye corrector that I'm currently using, I know is halfway done. So I know that the number is probably a little bit lower than that. But 2.33 years I think is still good. So completely happy with that category as well. So we're getting into slightly higher numbers. Maybe not for years so much, but for the amount of products. So for powders, I currently have 9 in my collection. So again, a little bit higher than some of the other product categories that I've had so far. Primers was 7. So it's up there a little bit higher than primers even. So powders, I have 9, and on average I finish up 2.57 powders a year. So doing that math, that means that I currently have 3.50 years or 3.5 years of powders left. And comparing that to last year, I actually have gone down quite a lot. Last year I had 6.45 years left of powders, so that means I've gone down 3 years worth of powders in a year. So I'm really, really happy with that number. And that also means that I'm not too worried about the powder numbers that I have. I actually think that I might purchase a couple more powders because I need some lighter ones. A lot of the powders that I have now are summer colors for me, so I need to purchase some lighter ones. So that might be something that I add into my collection relatively soon. And I forgot to mention as well with the correctors, I forgot to compare it to last year, but right now, like I said, I had 2.33 years, and in the previous year I had 2.41 years worth. So again, a little bit lower, but kind of on same numbers as before. Not really a massive difference there. So for setting sprays, I currently have 3 setting sprays in my collection. I have 2 long-lasting one and then one kind of a hydrating one, which is I think a skincare mist, but I count it into my setting spray collection. So I have 3 there for now, and on average in the past I have finished 0.8 per year. And again, like I said, I only owned setting sprays 5 out of the 7 years, so that is kind of what I'm counting for those numbers. But adding that all together, that means that I have 3.75 years of setting sprays left, which again I think is lower than that in reality, because one of the setting sprays that I have, which I actually roll into my yellow product pan, so you know which one I'm talking about, that one is very, very, very close to being done. So I'm very close to only having 2 setting sprays in my collection. So I think the total is probably more like 2.5 years. But that's still fine. I think that's still a really good number, really realistic number. And if you're looking at like the category, I only have 3 at the moment, which is still not a very high amount. So I'm happy with that category as well. So as you can see, I've been really happy with all of my categories so far. These are all my base products, and I feel like my base product categories are all under control. So very happy with all of them, nothing really alarming. And even though some of them are over 3 years, which I said was kind of like my mental threshold, I guess. I'm not worried about it. And for those categories, which is primers, powders, and setting sprays, I still feel like I'm under control in those categories. And I feel like the numbers might actually be a little bit lower than what the maths are saying. So those are all my base categories. Let's move on to cheek products next. And for cheek products, it's definitely when we are going up a little bit more kind of alarming numbers, but nothing too bad, but well, yes and no. You see when I get to it. So first up, we're going to start off with bronzers, and currently in my collection I have 11 bronzers, which is a little bit higher than I would like, but that's okay. I always been quite low with my bronzers, so I feel like 11 is fine. A lot of them I got on like free gift with purchase or passed down to me from friends, stuff like that. So yeah, 11 currently. And looking back at my numbers, I have been able to finish up 1.57 bronzers per year. Last year I finished 2 though, which is really good. So it did bring up the average a little bit. But looking at that, I actually have an average of 7 years of bronzers left, which is quite high. But it's okay. I think I might be able to get through them quicker. Some of them are minis or very close to being done. So I think realistically it's going to be a little bit lower than that. But again, 7 years, which is a little bit of a higher number than I would like it to be. And comparing that to last year, I had 8 years worth of bronzer, which means I'm kind of on track. I did lower it by 1 year, which makes sense because it's been, well, it's not been quite a year since I did that video, but kind of. So I'm really happy with that, at least that it hasn't gone up. All right, so moving on, we have highlighters, and highlighters is definitely a category that has gone up massively in the last couple of years. Like I think in the last 2 years, I have brought in a lot more highlighters in my collection, and I've been working on bringing that number down. So highlighters currently I have 28 in my collection, so a very, very high number. I never had it that high before, but it's, you know, it is what it is. So 28 at the moment. And on average, I finished up 1.86 highlighters per year. Last year, that definitely brought up the numbers because I finished up 4 highlighters last year, which was amazing. It was probably the best highlighter year I've ever had. So very happy with that. And that did bring up the average a little bit, which I'm glad to see. And that means that right now I have 15.05 years worth of highlighter, which comparing it to last year has definitely gone down quite a lot. Because last year I had 20.67 years worth of highlighter. So it went down more, it went down like 5.5 years. So very, very, very happy with that. And if I can keep that up and finish, you know, a couple more highlighters, maybe 3 this year, that will continue to bring that average per year up. And also bring the numbers down quicker, which hopefully means that it won't take me actual 15 years to finish my highlighters, because that thought is a little bit scary. Then lastly, for cheek products, we have blushes. And this is definitely my biggest problem category for cheek products. It always has been. The other two has only recently gone up in numbers that much. But blushes has always been something that has hovered around like, you know, 30 to 40, if not more, blushes. So definitely a bit of a problem category for me. And currently I do have 37 blushes, so still in that kind of threshold or like kind of range, I guess. And on average, over the past couple of years, I've been able to finish up 1.71 blushes per year, which means that I still have quite a lot of years worth of blushes left. Like looking at that, I have 21.64 years worth of blushes. So a very, very high amount is probably, I mean, it is the highest category so far by far. So definitely one that I was already aware was a problem category for me, but these numbers like really does speak for themselves. So 21.64 years there. However, comparing it to last year's number, it has gone down because last year I had 26 years worth of blushes. So it has gone down with 4.5 years in a year's time. So that is at least, you know, promising. It's nice to see that the numbers going down quicker. And I think so far, almost no categories, if anything. I'm looking now. The only category that has gone up, I think, is primers. So far, so good with that. Nothing has really gone up apart from primers. So at least they are moving down, which is ultimately the goal for my makeup. All right, so we are moving on to eye products next. I'm actually saving eyeshadows for last, but otherwise I'm going to go through my eye products next. And the first category we have out of those is eyeshadow primers. And I currently only have 1 left in my collection, which is very, very, very close to being done. So I know these numbers aren't correct, but that's fine. That's just how the maths go. But on average, I am able to finish up 0.86 eyeshadow primers per year, according to my data, which means that I have 1.16 years worth of eyeshadow primer left. And comparing that to last year, it has also gone down. Last year it was 2.41, so it's gone down, you know, 1.3 years, which is really good to see. And again, I know that that number is actually very inaccurate. I think if anything, it's like 0.16 years rather than 1.16 years left, because again, it's very, very close to being done. But I will replace my eyeshadow primer the one I'll talk about is actually glitter primer. I will replace it once it's done, so that number will go back up once I replace it. Next up we have pencil eyeliners. So I have split my eyeliners into pencils and liquid eyeliners, and currently I have 4 pencil eyeliners in my collection. I actually have, I think, 2 that I got in the past year from different like goodie bags and stuff like that. I have in calendar, I think it was 1, and then 1 in a goodie bag. So it has gone up a little bit. I haven't really purchased any eyeliners in years. But I have 4 at the moment, and looking back at my average, I've been able to finish up 1.29 eyeliners per year, which means that I currently have 3.10 years worth of eyeliner, which is around that 3-year threshold, and I'm a little bit, you know, that is kind of like my cutoff. So it's okay as long as I don't bring that number up, and maybe I should keep working on my pencil liners a little bit more to be able to get that number down, but not too alarming. However, it's actually one of the few categories that has gone up slightly. Comparing to last year, I only had 2.26 years worth of eyeliners, but again, I did bring 2 more in this year. I did finish 1, but I brought 2 more in, so that inventory number has gone up, which is also why the average years have gone up, because I was only able to finish 1 eyeliner as well last year, which means that the average per year has also gone down. So that makes sense, and it's not too much. It's gone up less than a year, and again, overall I only have 4 pencil liners, which is not a very high number. Then the next category is liquid liners, and this is actually quite similar to the last one. I currently have 3 liquid liners in my collection, and on average I'm only able to finish up 0.43 liquid eyeliners per year, because it's really not a category that I finish very often. It's not a category that I wear very often. It's not very often you see me with liquid eyeliners in videos, because I just don't wear them very often. But I have 3 currently in my collection, and dividing that by 0.43 means that I currently have 6.98 years worth of liquid eyeliners, which is a very, very, very long time. But I feel like if I did kind of put one into a project and used it more regularly, it would definitely not take that long. It's just because I am very slow with using them. That is why the number is so high. And again, comparing that to last year, it has gone up. But again, I know that I brought in 1 liquid eyeliner from an advent calendar this year, so that is why the number has gone up. And I didn't finish any liquid liners. Actually, I've put 1, I think. I decluttered 1, maybe, because it was too old. Anyway, I can't remember if I counted that into my numbers or not. Let me see. Yes, I did count that into my numbers because I did get rid of 1. And I should have put that into my makeup empties, because even though it was old and I kind of decluttered it, I used most of it and it was drying out anyway, so that's why I counted as done. I forgot to include it into my makeup empties, but I did count one of them into my empties. And looking at that, it did kind of bring up that number a little bit, but again, I did bring 1 in, so it did kind of even out, and the numbers have gone up a little bit, again 6.98 versus the 6.06 years that it was last year. So it's okay. It's a very high number, but again, it's not because I have an insane amount of liquid eyeliners, it's because I use them up very slowly. For mascaras, I have 5 currently in my collection. I have some waterproof and some non-waterproof, and I kind of use the waterproof on an everyday basis. The non-waterproof I use, for example, when I wear fake eyelashes, or if I'm just working from home, stuff like that. But I have 5 in total right now, and I do on average also finish up 5 according to my data. I finish up 5 mascaras per year, which means that, very easy math, I have exactly 1 year worth of mascaras, which I think seems pretty accurate. But I also know that I use waterproof mascaras more, and I think I only have 1 backup waterproof mascara. So that means that, you know, I have more non-waterproof mascaras left, which is something that I use slower. So I think I would have to buy more mascaras this year, which is something that I stock up on all the time anyway, so that's fine. But I have 1 year worth of mascaras in my collection, and comparing that to last year was 1.24 years, so it has gone down, which I'm really happy to see. For brow gels, I currently have 3 in my collection, and it's something that I don't finish very often because I don't reach for them every day. I have started reaching for them every day more in the last couple of years, but not so much over all 7 years. So on average, I finish up 0.86 brow gels per year, which, since I have 3, that means I have 3.49 years worth of brow gels, which I think, again, is a little bit lower because I reach for them more regularly now, but that's what the numbers say, so 3.49 years. And comparing that to last year when I did this video, I had 3.61 years, so it's gone down a little bit, which is at least good. It hasn't gone up, but it's around the same number. So next category is one that I'm going to breeze over quite quickly, because that is brow pencils, and I actually don't have any brow pencils in my collection anymore. I haven't had it for the last couple of years, so I have 0 years worth, and I had 0 years worth last year. But looking back, I've owned brow pencils 3 out of the 7 years, and taking into the empties for those 3 years, I finished up 0.67 brow pencil per year. So that would be the average, but again, I don't have any in my collection at the moment. I'm just using eyeshadow as brow kind of filler, so that's why I don't have any. So 0 years that, which again obviously is really good. It's a product category that I have kind of started working out of my collection. And those were all of the eye product and brow products, I guess. So next up we're going to do lip products, and then lastly eyeshadows, and that is all that I have left for categories. So first up we have lip liners, and lip liners is something that has gone up a little bit in the last year. I have definitely, you know, gotten a couple more into my collection. So right now I have 8 lip liners in my collection, which again isn't a massively high number. I think 8 is pretty good. And on average, I finished up 1.57 lip liners per year. I think I could definitely go through more, but I'm not panning them. I kind of just use them whenever. Like, I don't use them every single day. I know some people do that, but I don't do that. It's mainly if I have a lipstick that is like too light for me and I want to mix it, or if I just want to get some more contour in my lips, stuff like that. But I don't reach for them every day. But yeah, with that numbers, that means that I currently have 5.10 years worth of lip liner, which is a little bit higher than last year. Last year was 4.37. But again, I'm not too alarmed with that category, even though it is, you know, more than 5 years, because I know that if they started to get old, I can probably pan them quite quickly. So again, not too worried about that category. Then let's move on to lipsticks, and this is the category that I have the most of, but it's also the category from lip products that I have, and I go through the quickest per year. So, you know, it's a high category, but I also pan them quite quickly. And right now in my collection, I have 64 lipsticks, so it's definitely lower than it has been. There was a time when I had over 200 lipsticks, so I'm really happy with 64, and it's something that I'm still trying to get down every year. And I'm not really purchasing that many lipsticks, and I'm trying to use up as many as I can. And on average for the last 7 years, I've been able to use up 6.14 lipsticks per year, which means that I currently have 10.42 years worth of lipsticks, which is, I know, quite a high number. But the good thing is that I have gone down quite a lot since last year. Last year I had 11.99 years. So I have gone down 1.5 years, I guess, versus the 1 year that I should have. So at least I'm using them up at a quicker speed than what the average says, which is good, because that means that the actual number is probably a little bit lower than 10.42 years. But I am definitely aware that lip products in general is a category in my collection that is a little bit of a problem category, and it's something again that I have been working on for the last couple of years to get down. Then next to that we have lip glosses, and lip gloss is something that I wasn't really that into for a long time, but I have gotten more into over the past years, and now it's like one of my favorite lip products to wear. Which is funny, because if someone told me that years ago, like 5 years ago, I would be like, no, I don't like lip glosses. I remember panning like a mini lip gloss from MAC, and I hated it. I hated wearing lip gloss, but now it's my favorite thing to wear. Anyway, currently in my collection I had 21 lip glosses. It has gone up again quite a lot in the last couple of years, because I do like lip glosses more. But I also started panning them much quicker. But the number per year is actually quite low, because again, I didn't pan them at all in the beginning of those 7 years. But the average is 2.29 lip glosses per year, which again, comparing to last year, I finished up, let me see, 3, 4, 5, I think 6 lip glosses. So again, that definitely has gone up the average a lot, and I think I'm going to continue keeping that a little bit higher. But anyway, currently that means that I have 9.17 years worth of lip glosses, which is quite high, but at least it's a little bit better than the lipsticks. And even better than the lipsticks, the kind of jump from last year to this year is very high. Last year was 13.77 years, but thanks to me finishing so many lip glosses last year, it has now gone down to, like, again, 9.17, which is what, 4.6 years lower, in just less than a year's time, which again, I'm really happy with. And then again, makes me think that I actually don't have that many years of lip glosses in my collection. So it's definitely something I'm going to keep an eye on, but it's definitely something that I think will continue going down quite rapidly, because I do wear lip glosses much more frequently now than I used to. However, a category that I know I'm very slow at panning, but I did finish one last year, which meant that the average went up a little bit compared to what it is normally, is liquid lipsticks. And liquid lipsticks, I currently have 19 in my collection. I count both the drying type of classical matte liquid lipstick formula that was the original that came out, but I'm also counting like Musi formulas and anything like that really. So they all count into that category. And like I said, I have 19. And on average for the last 7 years, I've been able to finish up 0.71 liquid lipsticks per year, which means I currently have 26.76 years worth of liquid lipsticks, which is quite high. But again, it actually went down a decent amount in the last year. Last year it was 32.84 years worth, which means again that it's gone down a lot. It's gone down basically like just over 6 years worth. I think I decluttered a couple liquid lipsticks though, but I also did finish one up, which is good. But again, I think I decluttered a couple, which obviously helps with that number, but I'm really happy to see it go down a bit rapidly, a little bit more rapidly, so that's good at least. And then the category we have all been waiting for, the most exciting one, because it's the biggest category in my collection, and it's also something that is my favorite type of product in my collection, and that is eyeshadows. So that's why I'm saving this for last, even though it could have gone with the eyeshadow category. And currently in my collection, I have quite a high amount of eyeshadows. I have 1,228 eyeshadows, and that is like single pans of eyeshadow. It could be singles, it could be in palettes, but 1,228 eyeshadows in my collection. And on average, for the last 7 years, I've been able to finish up 9.14 eyeshadows, which is not the highest. Last year I finished 10, but it was lower than I tried to do, definitely lower. But I'm very, very close to finishing a couple that I worked on last year, so that is good at least. But averaging that out, I have by far the highest amount of years worth in a category, because I currently have 134 years, well, 0.35 years worth of eyeshadows. 134.35 years. That is an alarming amount, but I knew that it was alarming. However, the good thing is that it has gone down a good amount since last year. Last year it was 141.88 years. So what is that? That is 7.5, about 7.5 years worth in 1 year, which is really good. I did declutter a couple, but I also used up more than the average, so that's good. And this year in 2025, I'm definitely going to try to finish up more eyeshadows. My goal this year, which is actually every year, but this is the year that I actually think I can do it, because I have a really good head start of a lot of eyeshadows that I was like this close to finishing from last year. I think I have 1, 2, 3 that I can think of that I'm like super close to finishing. And then I have a couple that I'm like halfway done with already that I worked on last year. So I think I have a good head start for this year, and I think the number is going to go up quite a lot this year. So I'm hopeful that it's going to go down quicker. And just because I did this last year too, because again, my goal is to finish 20 eyeshadows per year. And if I stick with that goal, that means that I currently have 61.40 years worth of eyeshadows, which is, you know, still an unreasonable amount of eyeshadows, but I just love it so much, and that's okay. And that number is at least a little bit more kind of realistic to me. If I used eyeshadow every day, I mean, 61 years, I would, you know, be like 92, 93 before I finished all of them. So it's still not realistic, but it's a little bit more realistic. And comparing that to last year's number, when I divided it by 20 rather than like the actual average, I had 63.85 years. So that means that I have actually gotten rid of more eyeshadows this year than what my average was, if it was 20, which is really good. So that would have been, that was 63.85 years. So again, it was 2.45, so a little bit higher again than what the 1 year it should have been is. So I'm very happy with that. But overall, I know that eyeshadow is a problem category for me, and I'm not having that many because I'm ever thinking I'm going to go through all of them. That is why I do so many eyeshadow declutters. But yeah, it's interesting to look at, but I definitely know that it's a problem category for me. And that, you guys, was all of the numbers for this video. Does any of the numbers shock you? Was there anything that you were very surprised by? Was all of them like you expected? Did you expect any of them to go up, or where they went down, anything like that? Because I am very happy, because majority of the numbers have gone down compared to last year, which is again the ultimate goal. So I'm really happy to see that. There's actually even a couple of categories that I'm starting to run very low on, so that is super pleasing to me to see, because that means that all of these years of planning has paid off. And I feel like also my mindset for buying eyeshadows have completely switched over the last couple of years. Even eyeshadows, I am starting to switch my focus a little bit. I've always had a weakness for eyeshadows, but doing my eyeshadow bank last year, and also being on like a very low buy, has definitely, like tracking all my usage, stuff like that, has definitely changed my eyeshadow purchasing habits. So I'm hoping that it's going to go and track more with the rest of my eyeshadow, like, sorry, not eyeshadow, rest of my makeup collection, and I'm going to switch it even more, because overall I'm standing at a really good place in my collection. Like, for example, categories like blushes, which I know is a prom category, and lip products, I've had those products for a long time. So I've had those categories even before I started switching my mindset, and that's why it's taken so long to work them out. And that's why, like, some of my blushes numbers are so high. I haven't barely bought a blush in the last like 2, 3, 4 years. Most of them I have are older than that, or has been gifted. So again, I'm happy that I'm switching my mindset, and most of these numbers I'm really pleased with. Of course, I do have my problem categories, which are the ones that I was aware of, but it's still really nice to see the numbers now on paper. But I'm going to wrap up the video here. I really hope you guys are having an amazing day wherever you are. If you're doing anything like this yourself, let me know which are your problem categories and how many years you have of them in your collection. And I will catch you in my next one. Bye, guys.